Welcome to Buses, Benches, and Baseball, presented by DimTroduction.
Who? Never heard of him.
Who's this guy? Who's this guy?
It's not real!
Now here is your host, Tim Dillard.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the world's #1 most unneeded minor league baseball podcast in the world. It's Buses, Benches, and Baseball. And I am your host, Tim Dillard. Thank you for clicking and checking out episode 11 of this underwhelming pod show thing. So happy you're here to listen about life in the minor leagues from the boys that have been there and done that. And that's really what this show is. It's for those players and those involved in professional baseball to have a place to tell their story and the stories that are important to them. Remember, you can watch this episode and past episodes on YouTube for fun bonus stuff like clubhouse videos starring teammates. Teammates like my guest, Kyle Wren, baseball lifer. We ran long on this episode, so let's get right to it. But first, a word from myself talking about D1 sports training. Hi, I'm Tim Dillard. You may remember me from such minor league baseball teams as the Beloit Snappers, the Nashville Sounds, and of course the always intimidating Brevard County Manatees. Well, my 18 years in professional baseball would have been way shorter if my wife got her way, but I was able to stay healthy and be in shape, air quotes, thanks to two very important things. Number one, of course, ibuprofen. I want to say thank you, ibuprofen. And also, training every offseason at D1 Sports. D1 Sports training is some of the most elite in the Northern Solar System and have helped over 100 NFL draft picks and thousands of professional, college, high school, all athletes of all shapes and sizes and ages. And with over 100 locations across the country, the next step of strength and agility could be at your fingertips. And speaking of those fingertips, use those to type in D1training.com to learn more about how D1 Sports can elevate your health.
Now it's time for a Mound visit.
My guest this week on the Mound visit is former professional baseball player, former teammate, left-handed outfielder, Kyle Wren. Not Kylo Ren, Kyle Wren.
That's
What's
right.
up, buddy?
What's up, man? I know it's been forever. When you texted me,
Yeah.
I think it was Monday, I instantly, a smile went like this big, I was really excited when you texted me to do this. So yeah, man, I'm just excited to get to talk to you again.
No, I appreciate you doing this. It's funny is I'll text guys. This is only, I've only done, a handful of episodes.
Yeah.
And everybody, a couple guys will call and I won't even answer their call. I'll just be like, hey man, let's just catch up in front of our audience of a couple dozen people. But man, let's get started with you just because, I think we share this. We always have growing up in a baseball family.
Yeah. I was actually thinking the same thing, Tim, before we got on, is that we both, we have that similar experience of your dad having played, my dad played the minor league level and then was a front office executive for almost 40 years. So, growing up, I think me and you guys that grow up in that environment, we have an advantage because we're constantly having a conversation with someone that's been there, done that. My perspective is I was having conversations as a middle schooler and a high schooler with the guy who was running a Major League Baseball team. So, I probably had a much higher than average baseball IQ at that age, just because that was the conversations I had over dinner. And my wife, my brother's wives, they all when we get together with my dad, they're just oh God, they're just going to talk about baseball just nonstop. Here it goes. So that was, that's how I grew up. And again, there's some negatives to it. You do have maybe friends or sometimes that are jealous because they're well, Kyle, the reason he's starting on varsity is because his dad's the GM of the Braves and stuff like that. But I think that prepares you more than anything for the college level, the professional level. Cause I remember after I got drafted, I would go into A-ball and there's fans on a thirsty Thursday in about the fifth inning being hey, Kyle, don't worry. My dad gave me a job too, So, and again, at that point, it was just that made me laugh. I didn't care, but I wouldn't trade it for the world. I mean, I got one of the coolest childhoods. My dad had one of the coolest jobs, I think, in the world, being a general manager of a Major League Baseball team, two teams. It was awesome having that experience. And I know yours is kind of different, but it's very similar.
Yeah, what's interesting is when I was a kid, I got two older brothers, and when my dad was coaching in the minor leagues when I was, growing up, nobody even knew our names. They
Yeah.
called me like little, SH fill in
Yeah.
the blank,
Yeah. Yeah.
just because
Yeah.
I'm running around the clubhouse and they're like, look at this
Yeah.
little, you know.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then as I got older, I was always Steve's kid. Hey, are
Yeah.
you Steve's? And so when I got into pro ball, that was
Yeah.
just golly, it was everywhere I went. Someone's like, "Is your dad Steve?" They didn't even
Yeah.
care my name. They
Yep.
saw the jersey name Dillard on the back, and that's what they went to. And what I
Exactly.
loved about it, and I mean, I'm sure you get this as well.
Hmm.
My entire career, if anybody ever said something about my dad, they went out of their way to tell me how much they loved my
Yeah.
dad, and
Yeah.
maybe they were coached by him or coached with him.
Yeah.
And it was my entire career. And so I
Well,
think
that's
with
the
that
code
kind
with baseball players, right? It's like, hey,
exactly,
hey, great guy, great guy.
everybody knows everybody.
Everybody calls you friend.
If anything, it really dawned on me like it's not just me doing
Yeah.
this and
Yeah.
what I represent. And it's not just the name on the
Yeah.
front, like, hey, Brewers or
Exactly.
whatever. It's the name on the back. And there's a really good legacy there that you got to keep
Yeah.
intact.
That was, I mean, very similar experience. Like obviously when my dad got out of, when my dad was done playing, he had a brain tumor, and that was back before like MRIs and everything. So he's in like high A and he's having all these terrible symptoms. And they didn't know what it was for a few years.
Wow.
And so he's playing like basically half a season for a couple years because he's in and out of the hospital. And finally, they have like an advanced CAT scan machine that finds it. He had a benign brain tumor underneath the brain on the stem. So it was like none of the imaging back then could catch it. And so by the time he was done, had the surgery, recovered, he tried to go back and play, and he was just like, I'd missed so much time, and he just was not the same player. So he went into coaching, did that for a few years, then he got into scouting, and eventually in the front, he never thought, he's like, I never want to go in the front office. Like that's not what I want to do. And of course, that's what he ended up doing and loving. And growing up, especially when I got in high school and like, there's scouts coming around, every single guy's like, man, hey, your dad played with your dad. He was an awesome guy. Like he was a great man. He's a great man. So I had a very similar experience and exactly right. I mean, it was when my dad was a GM of the Atlanta Braves in high school, like part of it was like, hey guys, like just like you said, you represent our family's name, and I happen to be the GM, so if you get in trouble, like it's going to be in the newspaper, and like
Yeah.
it's going to be issues. So exact same experience, and I did feel like that in my career. Like one of the regrets in my career is I never. It wasn't even about making it to the big leagues. It was like I never got to make that call to my dad. With his career probably being cut short, like he would tell you, like, I had a shot at playing in the big leagues. I don't think I wouldn't have been a star or anything like that, but like he's like similar to me, like probably would have got up there, got on the bench to start and had to prove your way.
Sure.
But my biggest regret is I never got to make that call to my dad and to kind of thank him for the guidance and the support, and the friendship, like along the way. Like after every single game of my professional career, like I called my dad every single game. And when I was in Colorado Springs with you, I would call him in the morning because it was a little bit later on the East Coast. But so like I literally talked to him every day. And so like that was my wife, when I was getting close to the end of my career, she was like, do you have any regrets? And that was, and I was pretty emotional when she asked me that question, because it was like that was the one thing. It wasn't really even about playing in the big leagues. It was just like, I wish I got that chance to call my dad and be like, thank you for everything. Like we made it.
I mean, but think about, he totally gets it. Like
Yeah.
he knows when you're in the inside and you know how hard it is to get to the big leagues, how many things have to go
100%.
exactly right that you have
100%.
no control over. It's astronomical, the percentage of guys that even get that chance, even get to smell that cup of coffee.
Yes.
So yeah, I mean, you talk about a guy that understands. Frank understands, man.
100%. 100%.
You have an advantage. You feel like you're going
Yeah.
through high school. You go to Georgia Tech, which I didn't know this was Georgia Technical Institute.
Georgia Institute of Technology. Georgia Institute of Technology. Yeah, like the worst thing you see is like the kids that commit to Georgia Tech sometimes. They'll say, I'm very proud to announce I'm committing to Georgia Tech University. And that's like the big no-no. It's like, no, this is it's a research institute. So like it's very prestigious, and anyone that has graduated, I did get my degree after I was done playing.
Nice.
It's Georgia Institute of Technology. It's the
Okay.
Institute.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I went to junior college and
Yeah.
I didn't,
Same thing.
I've heard of Georgia
Same thing.
Tech and I looked you up on the baseball reference.
Wikipedia?
Yeah,
Baseball
Wikipedia.
ref.
Georgia Institute of Technology. I was like, oh man, he
Yeah.
may, I don't even
It
know where
sounds
that
more
is.
prestigious when you say it too. Like it sounds more
Yeah.
prestigious.
Do you get some letters at the end of your name now? Like, is that
No, I mean, I graduated with a business administration degree. Georgia Tech's really known for engineering. I mean, it's a engineering and the computer science and stuff like that. I mean, obviously anything with technology, it's got a very good business degree as well. I'm not knocking it, but it's very well known for the engineering. So we took the not as difficult classes.
Oh, yeah.
You know.
when you get drafted, sometimes they'll put extra school in your contract. So like
Yep.
you can do school either online or after you're done. I think you get like 3 years to go
Yep.
back to school. I missed that window. I
Yeah,
got all
yeah.
the schoolings I need. Yeah.
Yeah, hey, you're doing fine, man. You're doing fine.
Well, dude, you go to Georgia Tech,
Mhm.
Institute of Technology, and you crush it.
Mm-hmm.
You get drafted. You get drafted twice. I didn't know that. I didn't know
Yep.
you got drafted by Cincy. You didn't go. Was it a
Yeah,
drafted
so, like-
follow situation, or did you have to just go back because?
No, I mean it was like so I had a really good freshman year. It was just like consensus freshman All-American, first team All ACCs. Did not like I tell guys I didn't know I was going to start opening day until like I saw the lineup that day. So I had no idea, like expectations are like I just hope I'm in the lineup, and then 20 games in you're like, man, I'm actually doing pretty well. So I had a great freshman year and went to the Cape and did really well up there. And then my sophomore year, I was a really big learning experience for me. So I ended up hitting like 250, just big sophomore slump, like typical sophomore slump. And really
Yeah.
what I learned was I kind of thought I had figured it out. You just have a massive freshman year. You just think, all right, I'm here. I made it, and then I put like outrageous numerical goals on myself. And so I actually tell guys I work with now and I coach, I was hitting 350 20 games into my sophomore season, and I was mad at myself. Like I thought, man, you're terrible. Like I wanted to hit 400. Like that was my goal, which is, again, it's like, it was a little bit ridiculous, a lot of it ridiculous. And so I ended up just having a really down year because I'm doing well, but I'm not happy with it, and I'm not content, and I'm not just staying in the things I can control. And so I ended up, Cincinnati basically kind of took a flyer on me because they had really liked me my freshman year, and I think it was just kind of a flyer. Maybe they could sign me, and then ultimately I was like, no, I mean I'm going to go back. I ended up putting on 20 pounds that summer. I didn't play in the Cape. I just put on weight, and then came back and totally changed my approach. Totally changed my mindset. I'm just going to control what I can control.
Yeah.
And I can control everything up to the point of that ball leaving my bat. And then it's up to the baseball gods if it's a hit or not. And end up having even a better year than my freshman year. And so, you know how it is in the draft, Tim. It's like for most of us, like there's 3, 4, maybe 5 teams that are really on you. And then like other teams are like, yeah, he's a good player, like may take him later. But those 5 teams are like, man, we like you. They're kind of telling you, hey, if you're here at this point and available, like we're probably going to take you.
Sure.
And Cincinnati was one of those. Again, I mean, I think they were, when they were talking to me, it was like 4th or 5th round. And you know how the draft is. It's like, of course, someone fell to a spot where Cincinnati didn't think they were going to get him, so they get a center
Yeah.
fielder early, and so
And then they start closing their eyes and throwing darts at a board. And
yeah,
hitting
exactly.
names.
So I ended up
was one of
getting
those
drafted.
darts.
Yeah, exactly. So I ended up getting drafted by my dad, by the Atlanta Braves, and my dad actually asked me before the draft. He's like, I don't want to put you in an awkward situation. If you're there and we want to take you, like, are you okay with us drafting you? And I was like, yeah, I don't care. Because I had led the ACC in hits. I hit 360. Like I had a really good year.
Yeah.
So I was like, my numbers are they may think like nepotism, but then they'll just look at my numbers and be like, oh, okay, no, and I was projected to go like top 200 picks. The Braves ended up picking me like 256. So I felt like, all right, no one's going to say anything. But then of course, like immediately it was like Braves GM drafts his son in the 8th round. And I think even Keith Law tweeted that I was like the worst pick in the draft or something.
Shame on him.
And of course I think like he probably had no idea like who I was or had followed me. Or that, I was drafted way later than I was projected to get drafted. But that did that happened right away. But again, like when you grow up, like, we have and with the dad who's part of the game, you see little things like that everywhere you go. So to be honest, I didn't care. I could care less.
You were used to it. But
Yeah.
I mean, that's great. He did the right thing. Like my dad,
Yeah.
when he was coaching and bounced around to different teams over the years. I think the Brewers actually went to him while I was in the minor leagues with the Brewers, and they were like, "Hey, we want you to bring you on board to help with our be an infield infield coordinator or something like that." Because my dad was a slick fielder.
Yeah.
And I remember I was excited. I was like, "Yeah!" My dad was like, "No way, I'm doing that."
Yeah.
He goes, because if I'm sitting in a room and they're trashing you, he's like, I'm not going to put up with that.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
But he gave me the heads up, and he asked first if I was okay with it. And I was like, super jazzed. And then he's like, nah, I'm good.
Yeah, I'm not going to do it. Not going to do it.
But I totally get it when you start blurring those lines, because people on the outside, that's all they're going to see.
100%.
I mean, that's all they're going to read about. And they're not going to look at the numbers, which your numbers, dude, you always could hit.
Thank you. Yeah, and one of the things my dad did is he was like, when in their pre-draft meetings, after we had that conversation, he was like, I want the scouts, the whole scouting department. When you're talking about Kyle, like, I'm getting out of the room.
Yeah.
Like, I'm going out of the room. You guys put him on the board where you think he's on the board, and that's where he's going to be. Like, I'm not going to be a part of that decision. And then ultimately, like, if it gets to that point, and he's the best guy on the board for this pick, like, we'll take him. Right. So it ended up being 8th round, signed. Obviously, my dad was like, you're not negotiating. Like, you're not negotiating. Like, you're signing for slot. And I was a junior, so like I got slot. And then I, ship off to, at that point, it was, down in the Gulf Coast League. And the guy that picks me up is like, welcome to the Gulf Roast League. It's 110 degrees out here.
Yeah.
And it was there for kind of that post-draft kind of mini camp. So I wasn't going to be playing in the Gulf Coast League because I was a college player. So I was going to go to the Appy League, which is not a thing anymore. It's a college summer league now. But it was kind of like that short season A-ball. And I get to short season and I'm there for 7 games and I'm hitting like 430. It's just, I mean, it was just, I don't like bragging, but like for an advanced college hitter, it was like, 2-0 count, you're getting a fastball, like 0-2 is a breaking ball. Like it was, you knew what was coming. And so then 7 games I go to low A and I'm hitting, immediately get off to a hot start and end up finishing the year there, like right at 330. And again, it was very kind of, the stuff was good, but it's like they're pitching to the count. There's no trickery going on. There's no like 2-0. Let's get him out front with a changeup. It's just like level, pitching to the count.
Everyone's trying to figure it out. And if you're advanced in a certain way, and this too, you can tell the difference between a high school player and a college player, pitcher or position player. And when you're that advanced, and because I went to junior college, but as I was getting through A-ball and AA, like they would throw these 4-year college guys. I'm like, you're just going to bypass A-ball? You think you're that good? It's like all these dudes have approaches. They know kind of what they're going to see, and they know how to handle the bat. And here's a guy, that comes in and you've been talking baseball your whole life. Like this is what you talk about at Thanksgiving. Drives everyone insane. But you're talking about philosophies and how to apply that to your game.
Yeah, and a cool story is, so my junior year, again, my dad was a GM, and it was like a Monday off day. So, in college, in Division I in college, your Monday's an off day unless you play like a Monday game, and then it's like your Tuesday's your off day. You have to have NCAA mandates an off day, 1 off day per week. So Monday, it was probably like a month and a half before, 2 months before the draft. My dad's like, hey, I'm driving over to the AA for Tampa Bay Rays in the Southern League.
Montgomery.
Yeah. I'm driving over to Montgomery to watch Alex Wood, who was in AA.
Yeah.
I'm gonna, he's pitching really well, and like I'm just gonna go watch. And do you want to come with me? So I'm like, yeah, let's go. And we drive over there. It's like 2.5, 3 hours maybe. And we're watching the game, and Alex Wood is just dominating. I mean, he's just like, I think I remember like they haven't hit a ball at the infield, and they haven't hit a ball above like 70 off the bat. It's like breaking bats, like doinkers back to the pitcher and third base.
Why is this guy in AA? Yeah,
exactly. I mean, he was so overpowering for a AA hitter. It was just, they had no chance. It was that dominating of a performance. And my dad, and we're driving back, and he's like, so what do you think? Like, you think you could play at that level? And Alex Wood, I'm like, hey, Alex Wood gonna be kind of tough. I had faced him in college, so I was 1 for 1 off him. Just just to taste put it out there. Yeah. So just taste myself a little bit. Tastes pretty good. And so I knew like with a wood bat, it's a lot different than with a metal bat. But watching the other guy, I mean, he was low 90s. Nothing really stuck out. And so I told him, I was like, I think I could play at that level. I think I can.
Oh yeah.
And so literally a year a little bit before, actually less than a year after I was drafted, I was playing my first game in AA was in Montgomery, Alabama.
There you go. In the Southern League.
In the Southern League.
Catching biscuits.
Yeah, the Montgomery biscuits. So that's awesome, it was a cool story because it was just like, you know, I get to have that experience right before I get drafted. And I'm just like, yeah, I think I'm good enough for that. And then literally a year later, I was there.
And you get to sit and watch a game with your dad.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't get much better than that.
And just and that was the cool thing about having a dad who was a GM is, you know, sometimes he would make a trade or sign a guy and I'm like, hey, why didn't we sign that guy? Like, why'd you let him go? And just learning kind of little tidbits that a general manager of a team thinks about versus like just a kind of a casual fan, which is basically kind of, you know, I'm not a casual, I was pretty locked in, but like, I'm not thinking about it in terms of like the entire organization and everything. And so yeah, getting like pick his brain about why you made this move. Why haven't you called this guy up? Why aren't you re-signing this guy after he had a great year? There's way more to it than just like the numbers and the tangible things, right? Which is kind of where the game has gone. Everything has to be tangible. Everything's got to be kind of something you can measure. And there are things that you and I both know, like in the game, that are intangible, that are highly correlative with someone's success in the game. Yeah. Right. It's like their mindset. You can't measure someone's mindset and their mentality and their mental toughness, but that is probably the most important thing for a baseball player. You cannot handle failure, you're cooked.
You can't quantify all of it. And, you know, hearing guys on a fresh year, like spring training rolls around and every reporter's like, okay, well, what are you going to do this year that's different?
Everyone's going to have an amazing year. Yeah.
And you never hear, hey, I dug into the numbers and I figured this out. No, it's usually like, you know what? I need to compete harder. Like I need to focus more on this. And that's the stuff that you can't measure because you can go out there and go through the motions. I mean, we've all been guilty of it at some point because
100%.
You're not going to feel 100% every single time you're showing up to the field. Yeah. And to sit there and think, when you start putting numbers there, you're like, well, this is what this guy's going to do every single time. And that's impossible. Yeah. Going back to when you're in college, you're writing down these numbers of like expectations on yourself. Baseball's hard enough without throwing expectations up on your shoulders.
And again, like the way I say it is, it's kind of like, it's like if you're playing baseball on a spreadsheet. And again, like the metrics are really important. There's a lot of things that you can get a lot of information from looking at a lot of the analytics. I mean, are amazing. Just the information you can gather on a pitcher, on a hitter, and their swing decisions and tendencies and all that stuff. But like Yogi Berra said, it's like baseball's 50% physical, 90% mental, I think was the quote. It's like that. The thing is, it doesn't make sense. But if you've played the game at a high level, you're like, that is 100% true. Like it is 90% mental, 50% physical. Because I remember like my worst stretch as a hitter was in AA, and it might have been the year that I was traded to Milwaukee. So my dad had got fired in 2014, which that's awkward. You know, you're in the organization, your dad gets fired. And I knew, you know, I was a professional. Like I knew eventually my dad would be fired. Like that's how baseball typically works. Like you're a GM, you're a manager, you're eventually going to get fired, unless you're just one of the all-time greats, basically. And so he got fired while I was going to the Fall League. So I'm in the Arizona Fall League, pretty much guessing like I'm going to be traded at some point. So I get traded to Milwaukee at the end of the Arizona Fall League. And so I get to AA that next year. And like I think halfway.
Was that Biloxi? That was Biloxi, right?
On the road to start. Yeah, it was Biloxi's
first year.
That's right.
They were building the stadium.
It was Biloxi's first year.
Yeah.
And I mean, it was like, you're on the road for 70 games. And then we did play in Huntsville a few series. Yeah. But we were basically like, everything that we brought with us to spring training was traveling with us everywhere. I mean, it was crazy. So in the midst of that first half, because I ended up getting promoted to AAA right when we got into the stadium. It was like we were there for a week and then I got promoted, which is like nice. I don't even get to use the home stadium. But I'm 0 for 28. 0 for 28. Now that is a dark place because at some point in that 0 for 28, you know, you're lining out for a few games, you know, you're kind of unlucky. And then all of a sudden, like you're not hitting the barrel. And then it's like, I forgot how to hit. And
that's the worst too. Cause you're like, you question everything. Cause when you're in that bubble, you're going 8 different places. Maybe I should have never played baseball. Maybe this isn't where I'm supposed to be. You're thinking like way outside of everything.
Exactly. Like the thought that goes through. And I learned basically because like almost like every April was kind of my slowest month. That was always like I got off to a slow start. I'm always like end of April, I'm hitting like 200 or right maybe under.
That's a lot of guys though. I mean,
a lot of guys.
Yeah.
And so that 0 for 28, it was a huge test of my just mental toughness. And I had to show up to the field every day like I'm getting out of it today. Yeah. Instead of like I'm over 28 and like first at bat you get out and you're like, oh, here it comes again. Which you see guys do that. And I just like knew I'm gonna get out of this. And April like 28th came around and I got 3 hits. And then by the end of May, I'm hitting right around 300. And so I learned from that season in particular, even if I'm struggling, the next year when I was hitting 180 April 18th, instead of being like, gosh, am I ever going to get out of this? It was like, April 28th is going to come around and I'm going to get a couple barrels. And then by the end of May, I'm going to be in good shape.
No panic button. You're handling
every season
failure way better because you've gone through it before. Yeah. That's the one thing I think a lot of players when they get into pro ball have not struggled before.
Yes. Yeah.
And then they get in pro ball and it's like, okay, I can't figure it out. And maybe you're relying on a coach, maybe you're relying on whatever, yourself too much. And that's good to have the resources. You said you called your dad. That's something I did. Because I didn't want to bring.
Hey, what are you seeing? What are you seeing?
Yeah, if I'm not doing well on the mound, the last thing I'm going to do is go to the guy in the locker next to me and be like, "Hey, man, here's my troubles," because they're going through stuff too. And then when I later on in life, I didn't want to bring it home and be like, "Hey, honey, listen to this." She's like, "Don't care.
I suck.
Like, figure it out." Yeah. So I always had that resource, and I invite every player at any level to find an outside source. To call, and if it's just venting, vent.
It's just venting.
I don't care. People have reached out to me on social media and stuff just to vent, or I give them a space to do that because I'm going to understand. Because if the more you talk about it, you actually feel better. But if you talk about it to a team, head strategic guy or whatever, self-help dude, like you feel really weird. And then if you go to like a spouse or to a teammate, that's going to be weird too, because it's not going to end well. So you got to have an outside source to vent, because I'm telling you, that's the only way to get through this baseball life.
Yeah. I mean, that was a lot of those conversations with my dad, where it's like when I was struggling, it was again, like I wanted to know his opinion, but it was also just like letting out my frustrations. And just letting out the frustrations instantly makes you feel better. And I think that what's different about the pro game, even in college, at a high level in college now, like those guys are playing against really good competition.
Yeah.
And what's different is in college you play one midweek game typically on Tuesday, and then you got Wednesday, Thursday, and then you play on the weekend. So you have this kind of reset built in to the college season, where like you have a tough weekend. All right, you got Monday off. Now you're playing a Tuesday midweek, which is against usually lesser competition.
You regroup, you have time
and then you got 2 days. In pro ball, it's every day. So there's no like there's no like, all right, okay, I got 2 days. The weekend was tough, but hey, let's get regrouped, and then next weekend we're going to get back and swing.
And you don't know. You don't know where you're going to be playing. Like you were outfield, you could be playing left, center, right. All these things are different. You don't know if you're going to be in the lineup. Like you show up, you have to be ready to play. And even if you're not in the starting lineup, you better be ready to play, because if something happens, you're in there.
Yeah, so, and back in the national, back when the National League had the pitcher still hit.
Yeah.
So even if you did have the day off in the National League, you better be ready in like the 6th, 7th inning to pinch hit. So you really like you better be locked in, because that's an 0 for 1 counts the same thing. So like you're struggling and you're like, you get the off day and then coach like, hey Renner, go get ready to hit. You're like, oh gosh, here we go. Yeah.
That's the toughest part, I think, about the game sometimes, is maybe you're in the car or whatever on your way to the field, because you have to make a decision. I'm going in here full throttle in a positive manner, or I'm just going to let this game eat me alive. That's why I always appreciated you when we started making all those videos in the clubhouse, because I felt like the guys that wanted to be in these videos to kind of break free from all that stuff were the guys that maybe had the game in perspective a little bit.
Yeah.
It's hard to keep it that way.
Yeah. I think, what I learned early in my professional career is that, baseball is not everything. And you go through some of those early season struggles like I did, and the one question in your brain is like, what I always was able to reset when I came to the conclusion that I've had a great career.
Yeah.
I got a whole life ahead of me. This is not the end of my life if this is where it ends. And as soon as I was able to kind of make that conclusion in my mind, like the next day I was back. Yeah. Because again, I wasn't putting all this weight and making it way more important than it is. Like, don't get me wrong, I was dedicated. I wanted to get to the big leagues. But again, if it's everything, failure is going to kill you. Yeah. And so when we started doing those videos with you, like, it was just that thing, like, it just take your mind off baseball. Yeah. And then, playing cards in the clubhouse, like, it's something that takes your focus off of what you got to do in a couple hours and lets you focus on something, that one thing. And it's just that break reset. And again, for position players and bullpen guys, it's kind of the same. But position players, if you're playing every day, it's like you got to be locked in every day. There's no mental day off. And I remember in high A, we're in like the second inning and I'm struggling. And it was like a month and a half into the season. And we're like fourth inning and I just hear all the bullpen guys just start dying laughing. And I'm locked in the game. And I'm like, man, I'm jealous of these guys because at least for like 3 or 4 innings, they can kind of be be checked like
nobody's paying
out.
Attention.
Yeah. I'm struggling and I'm like having to try to make a play in the outfield, every pitch.
It's different. And what you said earlier is so profound. If you can take the game as maybe I've had some really good games, I've had some really bad games, I've had everything in between. And if it ends today, it ends today. And what that does is allows you to play uninhibited.
Free.
You can go out there and I'm going to play the game for the love of the game. And I felt like I always wanted that, but didn't get it till like later in my career. Luckily, I played forever. And it helped, with that perspective that I could give it to some of the younger players coming up of like, man, I've given up the longest home runs in the world and I've broken people's bats and I've struck out the side and I've lost the game, I've won the game, I've saved the game. Yeah. And once you kind of start thinking about all the different things that you've accomplished, it doesn't even matter if you're in high school or college, like think about that experience that you've had and go, I know how to play this game. I know what to do. And it really helps you as a player. But every single day, it's tough to tell yourself that.
One of the things I would always think is, especially when I had gotten to professional baseball, was just if I was 10 years old and I told myself like, hey, like you're in Double-A right now, I would have been ecstatic. I've been like, wow, man, like you made it. You got to professional baseball. You got drafted in a pretty high round. Like you got to play professional baseball. So there was always like, man, I've had a great career. Like I've done, pretty much everything I've set out to accomplish. And again, it's like you said, you go out there uninhibited. The game is tough enough. Proving ground out there every day, having to grind. A lot of guys just don't, who are trying to play professional baseball, haven't gotten there yet. It is not just the grind of the games. Like it's the grind of the travel. It's the grind of being away from your family. It's the grind of like being in a lot of times a minor league city where there's not a lot of stuff to do. And, are you eating healthy? Are you, staying away from things you should be staying away from? Like all of that just compounds.
Oh, yeah.
And when you get to professional baseball, it really is kind of the test of not only can you handle the failure and ups and downs of the game, but can you handle the responsibility of, for a high school kid being away from your family for the first time? And again, if you're a guy that's drafted pretty high, and you got a decent signing bonus, can you handle the responsibility of that?
Yeah.
Can you handle the responsibility of making the right decision so your body's in the right shape? There's the temptations out there on the road when you're by yourself. Like, can you handle that responsibility? So ultimately, like, you turn into a man when you get to professional baseball because there's just so much out there that immediately, if you want to do something that you shouldn't be doing, you can do it right now.
Yeah.
And like, do you have the ability to be like, nope, not going to do that. This is my focus. And we played with guys who that temptation was destroyed their career.
For sure.
No matter what it was. We all probably know what we're talking about. A lot of guys' careers either didn't end up being what it should be or never got to where they should have because they could not handle that responsibility.
No, that's definitely a real thing. And you will probably agree with this. Most baseball players that get into pro ball, they have this thing, I don't know the exact word on it, skill, attribute, whatever it is, to not be okay with where they're at. You know, like you get into AA and like you're thankful to be in AA, but you're content. You're not complacent. I want to get AAA. You get to AAA, you're like, I love this. I love all you guys. I want to be in the big leagues. And to me, that is what probably is quintessential. And I've had teammates, very few, that are just kind of like, whatever. And I just never, it's amazing. They're there for the ride. Oh, okay. Well, I'm going to go and hang out and go do this and be here. And it's like, well, you're not really taking it serious like you should. And I would say most players are like, I love it here, but I'm getting out of here.
Yeah, especially when you get to, like when you're like low A, you're kind of so far from the big leagues. You see, and I think like the higher you go up, you see less and less of those players, right? The players that are just I'm here for fun.
Great
in low A, you have a lot of guys who, they're going out every night, doing that stuff, not really like locked in and focused on what their goal is. And then you get to high A and there's less of those guys. Then you get to AA and there's a little bit less. And then you get to AAA. And again, it doesn't mean there's none. Yeah, but when you're in AAA, you're like collision in the outfield away from getting a call. At that point in AAA, I mean, I was just laser focused on, getting to sleep at a good time, getting to the field early, not even to like do it, just get to the field early. Be that guy that like when the coach gets a call, it's like, hey, Wren's here every day at like 11 o'clock, 11:30, and the game's at 7. And I'm riding around on that little scooter we had in the clubhouse for like an hour.
That.
Remember that thing? We would all just ride around on it like it was the funnest thing in the world. Like
was
we
it
were
the
like 10 years
hoverboard?
old.
Is that
it was
called?
the hoverboard. Yeah, the hoverboard. I forgot. I would get dressed, I'd get my sliders on and all that, and I'd ride around on that thing for about 45 minutes.
I love it.
And it was something about just like having that routine, even if part of the routine has nothing to do with baseball, it just like gets you. And I was very, what's the word? I mean, we have to do the same thing every day.
Groundhog Day.
No, it's superstitious.
Oh, yeah.
So I remember, I think I had in high A, I had like a 23 or 24 game hit streak. And that first night of that streak, I had gone to Cookout. I was playing in Lynchburg, Virginia in high A with the Braves for the Hillcats. And I got a cheerwine float at Cookout. So for 24 straight days.
What is that?
We're on the road. You never had one?
No, what is it? What do you
Cheerwine. You know what that is?
No, I don't
it's
think
like
so.
A cherry flavored soda. I think they make it in like North Carolina.
Oh, okay. It's like a soda pop.
It's like a cherry soda. So it's like a Cheerwine float. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
It's called Cheerwine.
So you had
it wasn't like it wasn't like I was pouring a bottle of Napa Valley and then like
I was like, dude, you're drinking cherry wine?
Yeah.
So for 23 days you're just like in the clubhouse, cherry whining.
Or like if we're on the road and I'm like, I got to get an Uber like 30 minutes away to get this Cheerwine float. That's what I was going to do it because it was just like, it's working. So keep doing it. So part of that hoverboard thing was like at that time, I think I was hitting really well. And it was just like, all right, I got to get to the field at 11:30. I'm gonna scoot around for about 35, 40 minutes, get hydrate while I'm doing it.
Yeah. So that's where that came from. I didn't know that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So for most of your career, you were in AAA. You were with guys that had a lot of big league time. Competition, like just us in Colorado Springs, think of all these top prospects that came through.
Yeah.
What was it like? Just, you knew you were good. You got to AAA quick. That's a tough gig to get there and be consistent. And you were. Yeah.
It was funny, like my first year in big league camp with Milwaukee, Craig Counsell kind of told me that. He's like, Kyle, like 7 or 8 years ago, you're probably in the big leagues right now. You got to AAA. He said this in quote. He's like, you almost got to AAA too fast. And I remember thinking like, wow, I guess I know what you mean, but like, isn't that what I was supposed to do?
Yeah.
So I got to AAA my first time in 2015. I was an all-star in AA, and that was like veteran. Like everyone was like 30 plus years old. I'm 24. And it was like I went from AA where I was kind of like maybe a little like kind of the average age there. Like everyone was around like 23, 24, some guys older than me. But everyone was still kind of like a kid. And you get to AAA and guys have kids. Like they have kids.
I had 3 kids when you
you had 3 kids. I mean, like Julie, who I was dating and now my wife, she would come up and it's like I went from like everyone's girlfriends to hanging out with everyone's girlfriends to hanging out with everyone's wives and kids. So it was like big culture shock. It was like, I
Yeah.
think it was me, like Orlando Arcia, Yadiel Rivera, like Tyler Cravey, and like maybe Taylor Youngman. We were kind of like the young guys on that team. And then everyone else was like 30 or older. Like there was like a distinct difference. And so
We had
it was a salty bunch
team.
too.
Yeah.
It was a
There's
salty
some
bunch. So like, it's like I would show up like 10 minutes early to stretch and like, oh, Wren, hey, get here when you want.
Yeah,
Get
right.
here when you want. And so that first taste of AAA, it's a culture shock because it is like you go from a bunch of prospects to really no one having big league time to like the majority of the roster has big league time in AAA. And it's like not just like a taste, like 2 or 3 years, which to like, the fan may think that's 2 or 3 years. It's not much, but like like you look at that guy like, holy cow, he's got 3 years in the big leagues.
Dude,
like,
I would love to have 2 or 3 years in the big league.
Yeah. So, I struggled that first year in AAA, and I think it was again like the pitching is like it's not as much of a stuff jump, but guys just really know how to pitch. Like it's a different kind of jump. Double A, the jump from high to double A is just pure stuff. Like your starters are throwing mid 90s, all of them. The relief, you're facing guys in the upper 90s that are out of the bullpen, but they're not really pitchers yet, right? The best guys are, but most of them are just kind of, they're either throwing a strike or a ball.
Yeah, they're just throwers. They're throwers. They're going to stuff you and get by. Yeah.
And you get to AAA and guys are like painting changeups 2-0 on the corner and like throwing a backdoor breaking ball 3-2. And they just like they're not going to give in if they don't have to. Like they're way more likely to pitch backwards. And you're facing guys with elite stuff too.
Yeah.
So it's like you're facing similar stuff, but they're just way better pitchers. And so I get sent back to Double A in 2016, which I was a little frustrated with, but I understood. Because then again, it's like how things have changed, Tim. Like Triple A, like I was probably one of the last kind of groups of players and prospects to, you really had to prove yourself in Double A. Like Triple A was not just, oh yeah, you do okay, you're going to Triple A.
Yeah.
Because that's where you had a bunch of like stopgap backup guys in case people get hurt that were proven or had big league time. And so again, it's like, hey, you're going back because you haven't proved that you can have success at AAA yet. And again, a guy, if you're going to start in AAA, like the thought is you could be a guy that can fill in the big leagues.
Yeah.
So I go back, AA All-Star again, get called back up. And then I get in the lineup and like, you remember, Tim, I mean, it was just like all of a sudden it was just like, bang. I mean, that was the best year of my life in 2016. I just could not, I was in that flow state for like 2 months. Like usually it's like 10% of your season, maybe. It was like a third or a half of my season. And I think I had that walkout song and I had that walkout song that went, "Dah." And you were like, every time that like bird sound comes in, if it gets to the bird, like you get a hit every time. Yeah. I remember you saying that. And so I ended up, and that was my protection year. Protection year. So it's like, for people that don't know, like as a college player, after your fourth year in minor league baseball, so I drafted in 2013, so that's 2014, 2015, 2016. So after your fourth year, basically the team has to put you on the 40-man roster or you can get picked up in the Rule 5 draft.
Yeah.
So I'm like, man, this is perfect. I'm raking in AAA. I ended up hitting like 340 in 350 plate appearances. So it was like over half a year. And I'm like, I put myself in as best possible situation I can to get put on the 40-man.
Plus stolen bases. Yep. Plus elite defense, right? Yep. Like you would dive everywhere. I think a lot of guys tried to run on you and get that extra base. You had a lot of outfield assists. So it wasn't just, I know we talk about hitting because it's obviously the hardest thing, but you were very well rounded in the other areas as well. Yeah.
Thank you. And so, it's just like, I felt like I had put myself in, and you know how this goes, Tim, like you get to the trade deadline and you're just like, if you're in AAA and you're doing really well, you're just like, please do not trade for an outfielder or two outfielders in the same spot.
Yeah.
And so ultimately that year prior, they had traded for Brett Phillips. So he was kind of in AA, but he was struggling at the time. And I knew he was probably going to get protected, but there was still plenty of room for me to get protected as well. And so trade deadline comes up, and it's funny how like a trade can impact your career. And Jonathan Lucroy is like the hot guy on the trade market. Yeah. He was, probably the best offensive catcher, top 2 or 3 in the league at that point. And so he's getting, it's like couple hours before the deadline, and I'm just sitting there like, okay, just please. So the first trade gets announced is to the Cleveland Indians, and I remember this, of course, because it like how big this impacted my career, and it was for like 3 high A guys that didn't need protection yet. So I'm like, woo, like here we go, And unfortunately, like late in the deadline, Lucroy vetoed the trade, so it's gone. So it disappears, and I'm like, oh gosh. And I might even have been asleep at that point. I can't remember. Maybe after the game, I saw it. Then he gets traded to the Rangers for Lewis Brinson.
Oh yeah,
Ryan Cordell. So 2 outfielders who are in their protection year.
Oh yeah,
both in Double-A, in like kind of doing. Ryan definitely had the best year.
Yeah,
I think he hit like 250 with like 18 or 19 home runs. Brinson had hit 230. But he was still considered like a top prospect in baseball.
Oh, yeah.
They both came right to AAA, and Lewis went off. I mean, he just raked. And then I think Ryan did pretty well. And then so ultimately it was like, now I knew. I mean, I'm like the 4th guy in the totem pole here.
I always got in my bubble of like, I'm just gonna do this because I was old, man. I'm still old. And I knew I probably didn't have another chance. And I was more or less going,
you would have to really you would have to pitch just unbelievable.
Well, I'm in a clubhouse filled with Josh Hader and Brandon Woodruff, brother. Corbin Burns, Freddie Peralta. I'm like, Adrian Hauser. I'm going, dude, I get it. And every single
and those guys were studs.
They're studs. We were on a team full of studs.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we're going to turn a little bit. So I have here a Sky Sox beanie, which...
Oh, gosh. You used to wear that every day.
I used to wear it every day. I'm not wearing it now. Just got a haircut. You're the first person.
It looks good,
no, it doesn't. Good. I'm regretting it. But I wrote some topics in here, and I'm going to reach in, and I'm going to pull out a topic, and hopefully it just jogs a memory, a story that you could share.
Okay.
Good?
Yeah.
All right. Who's your most famous teammate?
Oh, I mean, well, I guess if you include big league camp, that's maybe doesn't count. But
that counts.
Probably Christian Yelich.
Yeah,
I mean, or Ryan Braun, or
a teammate you get to watch, kind of prepare and play out there.
Yeah, I think like the one thing about Yelich was that one, he was just so down to earth. He had signed a big deal. He gets part of this massive trade, and he was just you just really couldn't tell. Like he did not give off any kind of energy like I'm a big shot now.
Yeah.
He was very cool. And again, he was just like really chill. Like it was like he got his work in. He wasn't super loud, didn't like talk a whole lot. And then like that was Lorenzo Cain. Lorenzo Cain was like the leader in the outfield. And again, like I was really blessed to like around a bunch of those guys that were just like really just super nice guys.
Yeah.
And because I mean, it's you expect to get like ragged on a little bit when you're in big league camp. Luckily, we had a couple of guys who were just like big fat targets for that. So it was like I think I dodged it a lot because a couple of guys just really had no. I'm looking at them like eating at the table and just having their computer out. And I'm like, oh gosh, like dude, you're drawing a lot of fire right now.
Yeah. Stay out of the limelight and learn from some of these guys.
Don't be loud in the clubhouse. Don't be talking a lot. Like it's almost like speak when you're spoken to, but it really wasn't that vibe. I feel like in Milwaukee, it was very, very friendly. And you had like Matt Albers, who was like, he had the most, like, he's like, he had the most time in the clubhouse. He was the most veteran guy. And it was funny because he's like, it's all on 1-year deals. Like, it's like 12, he had like 13 1-year deals. And he was just a funny guy who would like, he'd rag on you a little bit, but you knew he was just like making jokes. And I think that was part of why Milwaukee at that point had so much success. Like the clubhouse was a definite strength up there.
Yeah. No, that's a great
Pat
point.
Murphy, like you had Craig and Pat and their dynamic, and like Murph would get on you and rag on you. And I remember in one of the balls hitting the outfield, it was like, of course, it was like one of the first games, like a really tough read, like a top spin line drive into left. And you're just like, you got to be kidding me. Like I haven't seen one of these in like 8 months. And now I'm like, it's hit off of like some 10-year big leaguer's bat. It's just like at 110. And I like do like a half dive and it gets by me to the wall. It gets a double and I get into the dugout. Nobody scored. Thank God. You're out there like, it's hopefully this pitcher's not trying to make the team and you just like screwed over their ERA, Yeah. And so nobody scored. So I go in and I'm like, hey dude, my bad. Like and then Murph comes up to me and He's like, hey, let's try not to tackle the baseball next time. All right. And Murph was really good at like, if he knew he could poke at you and it bothered you, it would never stop.
Yeah.
So like I was like, hey, don't worry, Murph. I'm not going to tackle it again. As soon as like he knew like you were tough and he could poke at you and didn't bother you, he was one of your favorites. So like I loved Murph. I mean, me and him talked all the time, but I just think the whole staff in general up there, when it was DJ and now it's Chris Hook, who again, like no duh. I mean, everyone loved Chris Hook when in the minor leagues.
All right. Let's say you do a lot of traveling in professional baseball, all over the place, road trips. Do you have any good hotel stories or maybe a motel story?
Dude, I mean, like again, that 2015 season in AA, I mean, we lived out of a hotel.
Yeah. Cool.
But so like, I mean, you're basically like, guys are bringing their Xbox and like their PlayStation and like figuring out a way to like set it up so they can work on the hotel TV. Cause some of the hotels, like the TV's plastered against the wall and they're like, please, like I gotta play some video games today. And, no, I think like my favorite thing to do in the hotel was like after a game, go play cards, and just hang out and decompress. Cause it is like, I think a lot of people, like when you play a baseball game until like 11 o'clock at night, your adrenaline's still pretty spiked. You really can't, like, I don't know how you were, Tim, but like I could never go to sleep like right away. I would probably go to sleep at like 2 a.m. and then sleep until like 10. So I'd get my 8 hours of sleep, but I just could not, like my brain was too jacked up with adrenaline to go to sleep early. So I'd go, those of us who played a lot of cards, like whether it was Pluck or Spades or whatever, we'd just go in there and play and hang out and chill and just talk. And it was just a way of like to bond as teammates, but also to kind of decompress. And again, like you said, like focus away from, I just went 0 for 3. It was something to look forward to. Like, man, I went 0 for 3, but hey, I might win some money tonight in cards, So like, that was my favorite thing to do in the hotel, was just to, get home, call the, not my wife at the time, but call your girlfriend or fiance, who I'm now married to. We dated my entire professional career. And then go decompress and just hang out and chill.
That's a great place. That's a great place for the hotel. It's like get back, you have that deep breath, and then you just let the whole day, good or bad, be like, I got to get that in the past. No, that's good. All right, let's see here. This one says coaches. Yeah, who's a coach that had an impact on your career?
I'll tell you, it wasn't even one of my core. I mean, he wasn't even really a coach involved with me, but Charlie Green, who I know is now the bullpen coach in the bullpen for Milwaukee. I didn't even know that. I saw him at ABCA. He's walking in, and I'm like, how he walks. He's got that like distinct gait, and I see him from like across a room, like 200 feet, and I'm like, that's Charlie Green. It's like this kind of cocky, like upright walk, and so I see him, and I'm like, Greeny, what's up? And he recognized me immediately, and we sat there and talked for probably 20 minutes. And I always remembered him saying like things to the catchers, like kind of talking trash to him, like stronger arm or Tommy John. He's like, you don't have a strong arm. You're not going to play catcher in the big leagues. And, we'd always rag on him because he was like an elite defender at catcher, but he was like he couldn't hit for anything. He just had terrible offensive numbers. So I loved Charlie because I thought he was the kind of coach I like to be around, similar to Murph. Like he would talk some trash to you every once in a while just to like keep you on your edge. And I think him and Murph, they balance that very well. Like they know when to be serious. They know when to like, hey, rag on a guy when he like Murph knew if I messed up, like the best way to make a joke about it and be like, trying to like, be like, hey, let's try not to tackle the ball.
Yeah. And the best coaches
like he knew
balance.
That would like get it out of my brain immediately. Yeah. Whereas with some guys, if you do that, they're like, oh gosh, like Murph is, he's upset with me or something. With me, it was like, okay, Murph made a joke about it, so I'm good, And Charlie Green and him are very similar in that regard. Like they're very good at identifying the players and how to coach different players. So I love Charlie.
All right, let's see. From your career, do you have like a souvenir that you keep on the shelf?
Yeah, I have. Shoot, it might be. Where is it? I might have it right over here. I have a bat from the Arizona Fall League.
Oh, cool.
That I got like everyone on the team to sign. So like Lindor was on that team. So we ended up making the championship, even though like if you looked at some of the other teams, you're like, how did we make the championship? I mean, you had like Corey Seager in there and Tim Anderson and guys like that when they were coming up were just like superstars or thought they were going to be, and some of them end up being it, like Lindor. And so I have one of those. I mean, I have a couple, obviously some old gloves, and like I still wear my Colorado Springs sweatshirt like pretty like daily. So yeah, I got a lot of that
good
stuff.
Sweatshirt.
I got a lot of bats that I had, like when you go playing big league camp, you get like
Tons
36 bats or 24 bats. So like you can't go through that many in the season unless you're just getting blown up every game.
Right. So dude, I need a bat.
Yeah.
You got that
so I got a bunch
waste.
of those.
That's cool. I got tons of stuff, bobbleheads and God knows what else. But
I always got a lot.
I do. Well, I always like, they do the giveaways.
Yeah.
They always put one in your locker if you're at home. But I mean, you would see me travel around Pacific Coast League. There was clubbies and other teams that would have giveaways in my locker.
Yeah.
Like a traveling circus. All right. Yeah. Minor leagues is tough. We know this. How about this one? Off-season job. You have
off-season.
What'd you do in the off-season?
Yeah. So my dad, after he got fired from Atlanta, he's like, I think I'm gonna like buy a small business or like open a small business or something. Yeah. And he was like asking us ideas, and I was like, that was right when Chipotle was coming. I'm like, hey, if you can get a Chipotle franchise, like that would be, I could promise you can make money on that. Well, they weren't doing like franchising yet. Oh, yeah. I don't, and maybe they still don't. I don't know. But he's like, I just purchased a car wash.
Really?
And I was like, car wash? Like what? What?
So you're out there in a bathing suit? Is that it?
Yeah. So like me, my brother, and my grandfather, we're out there running the car wash like every day from like 9 to. So I would do that like, obviously there would be some days where I'm working out, going hitting, and then I'd come in after. But like if I had an off day, I'd go in like 9 and work until like 3:30 or 4.
What's the name of the car wash?
It was called. Well, he doesn't own it anymore. He ended up selling it. Oh. So it made I mean, the margins in a car wash are extremely high. Like you're paying for water and like that's it. So again, it was like I thought, man, what are you doing? And then you like look at the actual business, and you're like, this is a money printing machine.
Wow.
As long as you like it, things do break down a lot. So you got to like be good at keeping things up to working and everything. And that was like he got it for a steal because the guy who owned it previously let it run down. Like no one went there because they're like nothing works. Yeah. So my dad was just like on top of it. He's a GM, so he's like, we're fixing that right now, doing this, and then he ended up getting the job with the Boston Red Sox. Yeah. So he had to hire a guy to kind of run it, and then he ended up selling it. But it made a lot of money, and in the off season, me and like I would go there with my grandfather, and my dad would give us like he'd have like a business card, and like my grandfather's like, we're making your dad pay for lunch. Like we're not paying for our lunch. That's
awesome. And we're going to Chipotle too.
Yeah, so. yeah. So that was and then I'd give lessons. I'd do like some lessons, hitting lessons and stuff like that. So yeah, I mean, I always found a way to do something where I wasn't have to like, because Tim, and I'm sure you guys have taught like you don't make money in the minor leagues. Like you do not make money. I saw one of your videos they were talking about like if you're in big league camp and the meal money all year, you get your first paycheck in April and it's like $10, and you're like, well, I gotta pay rent. Yeah. And it's like you get that you pay for your house in spring training because you're getting big league meal money, and so then like you get that you have to pay for that first month's rent in AAA or wherever you're at, and you're like you got $20 because you just raked in the meal money in spring training. So
that's why we were sleeping in the clubhouse so much. Yeah, especially if you get a good clubhouse, which Colorado Springs had a good clubhouse. It was big. It did. I slept in there a lot.
Yeah, the Colorado Springs clubhouse was. It was so nice because it was so like there was so much wide open space.
Yeah, well, that's why you could ride around on your hoverboard.
Yeah, it was sick.
Which comes to this one. We made so many videos in the clubhouse, and I look back at some of them, and you were probably in, and I'm going to probably include some of those on this video. Yeah. So if you're everybody out there listening, you need to go watch it on YouTube. Yeah. What was your favorite video that we did? Do you want me to go first? I want to tell you mine.
You go first, and then I know which one I'm going to say.
The one I'm going to say is our Anchorman, where you, me, Petey, Steven Peterson,
Nick Ramirez.
We sang Anchorman, Afternoon Delight. That was my favorite.
And I was I had the glasses. And...
You were Steve Carell. You were Brick.
Yeah. Yep.
You really want to know what love is?
Yeah. Yes, tell us.
More than anything in the world, Ron. Well, it's really quite simple. It's Kinda like. Gonna find my baby, gonna hold her tight, gonna grab some afternoon delight. My motto's always been when it's right, why wait until the middle of a cold dark night? When everything's a little clearer in the light of day. And we know the night is always gonna be here anyway. Thinking of you's working up my appetite. Looking forward to a little afternoon delight. Rubbing sticks and stones together, making sparks ignite. And the thought of loving you is getting so exciting. Sky rockets in flight. Woo! Afternoon delight. Whoop. You guys have it, I think. Afternoon delight.
I don't know, Ron. That sounds kind of crazy.
Sounds like you have mental problems, man.
Yeah, you got mental problems, man.
Yeah, it really does.
Man.
Afternoon delight.
I'm gonna make a phone call here. Freshen this up.
Yeah, I mean, there were so many good ones. Like that again, that was like something like those of us who were like kind of the stars of those like those videos. Like
you were my
like,
star,
right,
man.
Yeah, we're like, all right, what's Tim got for us today? Like, what do we got? What are we doing? The my favorite one, and I think the one that like my friends thought was the best, and like my wife's friends thought was the best, was the heavyweights. Ben Stiller, like, how can I sell infomercials about fat kids? You can't keep their piggy little snouts shut.
Okay, now it's time to see what the Perka system means in pure loss of poundage. Okay, Gerald Garner. You gained 9 pounds. Turn off the camera. Let me make something very clear. The Perka system does not work with cheaters like Gerald Garner. Okay? How can I sell an infomercial about fat kids who can't keep their piggy little snouts shut? Who's gonna buy that, huh? Step off the scale. Okay, turn on the camera. Josh Birnbaum, step on up. Get on the scale, son. Get off the scale.
And they're like all my friends there was like, Kyle, you played that part too like a T.
I know. You wanted to do that. We were in spring training and it was right after physicals. And so everyone's getting up on the scale. And I think you even made the joke. You're like, get on the scale. You're like, get off the scale. And I was like, we're doing this video.
Yeah, it was because then we had like there was so many people involved. Like we had a crowd, like we had a crowd of all like the training staff and the strength staff and players, and like Preston Gainey, who is married to one of my wife's best friends. So like I see him all the time now. Yeah, he's in there. He's one of the guys where I'm like, step off the scale, or he's one of those guys. And so that video was just Parker Berberet's in there. He's like the camera guy, you know. And I'm like, turn on the camera.
Yeah, that one's great. I gotta find
that was one of the best ones. That was, I think I even posted that on my Instagram, maybe. Yeah. But yeah, that was like my favorite one, and I think that was the one that like everyone thought was just hilarious because some of those videos were just so good. Like one of my favorite that I was in that I wasn't really the main guy was when we did the Obama Pacific Coast League, and Yadiel Rivera was Obama.
Because Yadi cut his hair that day. He walks in the clubhouse, and we're like, "Dude, you look like President Obama." And we laughed, and he ran with it.
Oh my gosh, it was.
You were
so
Secret
funny.
Service. That's what you did.
I was a Secret Service, and I was like making sure he was like not, and he was like throwing the baseball. And
Mr. President, we know of your basketball background. What kind of baseball guy are you?
Well, you know, I am a big baseball fan. I didn't play organized baseball, and I grew up in Hawaii. My earliest memories of baseball were actually the Hawaii Islanders, which was a minor league team.
Pacific Coast League.
Pacific Coast League, and an old rambling ballpark that was about maybe 6 blocks from my grandparents' apartment. And we'd go in there and get boiled peanuts and watch the night game. And me and my friends, it is when we were 9, 10 years old, 11 years old, we'd run out and try to grab the rosin bag at the end of the game, cause havoc onto the field. And so those are my earliest memories.
Yeah, I mean, Yachty got that haircut, walked in. It's funny because a lot of your videos were like things that just like got jokes that got said or something that happened. Like Yachty walked in and he was like, he got this haircut. We're like, dude, did you ask to look like Barack Obama? Like you literally, and he did. He looked just like him.
I think he cut his goatee.
Go watch that video.
Remember, he had that like really long goatee, and I think he cut it.
Yeah.
I'm trying to get Yachty on this show, dude. He's
gosh,
still playing. He was in
good.
Winter Ball last year.
Yeah, I think he's playing in Puerto Rico still.
Yeah. All right. Who was your favorite player growing up?
Ken Griffey Jr.
Yeah.
Ken Griffey Jr. 100%. He was a lefty, and he was just like the best player all around. Growing like in the 90s.
Yeah.
He amazing, just beautiful swing, jumping catches at the wall. Happened to have a video game named after him as well. So like you put all those things together, he was like my favorite player by far.
And your dad's a GM of the Braves, and you don't pick anybody on the Braves?
Well, at that point, my dad was with the Marlins. But
okay,
still, it wasn't a Marlins player.
Jeff Conine.
Jeff Conine, yeah, I did. Actually, Jeff Conine was my favorite player on the Marlins.
Oh,
He was my favorite player on the Marlins.
He's Mr. Marlin, of course.
Yeah, I always followed my dad's teams religiously. Like I'm watching spring training games and like how are the prospects doing? Like I loved it. I still do. I still love it. But my favorite player, just bar none, was Ken Griffey Jr. And I actually got his when he was in the home run derby in Atlanta when my dad was with the Braves. That was like one of his first years as the assistant GM.
Yeah.
I have a hat still with me with his signature on it and a couple other guys from that All-Star game. Dang. So yeah, he was like, my brother got like, I think Sammy Sosa and I got Ken Griffey Jr. So that was cool.
That is cool. Dang. Yeah. Griffey's the man. You played a season in Winter Ball. Do you have any Winter Ball stories from the Dominican?
Yeah, man. I mean, that was, first of all, it's like really great for your perspective on life because, I played for Licey, which was in, the capital, Santo Domingo. And, you walk out every night after a game with a styrofoam kind of takeout box of food. And there's just like starving kids out there begging for food, Yeah. So I would always like eat some of my food and just hand it out every night. Cause it was just like, these kids are just like, hey, please, mister, please, like, I'm hungry. Wow. And so immediately your perspective of where your Dominican teammates come from and, probably the similar in Venezuela and other, Latin countries, you respect them a lot more because like they're coming from a lot less typically than what you're coming from in the United States. So you just have a lot more appreciation for them, their work ethic. And the fact that like they're going into another country and like like mostly Tim by AAA, those guys are pretty fluent in English.
Yeah.
Like in low A, kid, they're still young, they're still learning. But in AAA, like all those guys are speaking English pretty fluently.
But so man, that's a tough few years though for those guys.
Oh,
I had a lot of roommates, coming up the ladder, and it was you have to help them because it's
100%.
I felt the same way. I went to Venezuela and I'm like, I speak a little Spanish, but I can't do this. I can't survive out here. What's going on? Yeah, definitely perspective.
Perspective 100%. I mean, again, and the intensity of the fans. I mean, that's it is live or die every inning, every at bat. Well, the funny thing also is I remember my dad saying back in the day there in the Dominican, there was like 2 cups of coffee. It was like the coffee with the greenies and the coffee without it. Yep. And so I get down there and I'm like, all right, I got to keep my eye open here. I don't know if it's the same thing. And it's just one. And me and Cam Gallagher, who had come up with the Royals, we played against him in Omaha, but I had come up against him my whole career. I played against him in low A, high A, skipped him in double A and then in triple A. And so I knew him pretty well. I had a good relationship with him because the catchers, you're always like, hey, Cam, how you doing, man? Like, what's up for everything?
I have his bobblehead on my shelf upstairs.
Yeah. And he was a good player. So he's on my team. And we both got down there. By the time we signed and everything, we got down there right before the first game. So they were like, hey, just like first game, just take the day off. We'll start playing tomorrow. And so we go in there and did you ever play in the Dominican, Tim?
No,
it's probably similar in Venezuela,
Mexico. Yeah.
But you go in there and it's like, this coffee is like thick, like dark as night.
You can eat it with a spoon.
Yeah. And they pour it. They have like little plastic shot glasses.
So
you're not taking a cup of coffee. It's like you're taking a shot of this super strong coffee.
Folks, this is 100% real.
Yeah. 100%. And in baseball, like everyone, like you're basically become a caffeine addict, especially in AAA when you're traveling and you're waking up for 3 a.m. to get on a bus to the airport every 3 days or 4 days. And so couple 100 milligrams of caffeine is just like that's every day. Like that's not my heart doesn't increase at all while I'm drinking that. So me and Cam are like, all right, let's get like 3 or 4 of these things, like just relax, have fun and see what the atmosphere is like. And we're just we put 3 or 4 of them back and we go down for the Dominican national anthem, start of the game. And like halfway through the national anthem, like he looks over at me and we're both just like, and he's like, dude, do you feel like you're like high right now or something? And I'm like, I don't know what it is, but I'm like locked in. And so then I called my dad after the game. I'm like, I think there's only one now, and I don't know what's in it, and maybe it was just I took 4 and they were like 200 milligrams a pop or something.
There's leaded and there's unleaded, and
dude, it was like you were just like your eyes could not shut, wide open. And so I was careful about the coffee after that because I was like, I don't know, I don't want one of these, like I don't want to get random drug tests to come down here and get popped for something I don't even know is going on.
Yeah,
but it was so fun. I love Latin American food, just love it.
Yeah, me too.
I love Mexican food, like Mexican breakfast. To me, like huevos rancheros is like the best breakfast item in the world. So I loved it because they had, plantains, fried plantains and rice and beans and like really good, like slow cooked chicken. And they had some like fried chicken, which is funny. The best fried chicken place that all the Dominicans told us, it was run by like Asian immigrants who were in the Dominican. They had the best fried chicken place. I was like, really? And they were like, yeah, it's the best. Pico Pollo is, I guess, what it was called. And we had that like almost every day. So you're eating like fried chicken and plantains and rice. It's like you're not losing weight in the Dominican.
Yeah.
No chance.
So the best chicken place was a Chinese place in Dominican Republic.
Yeah, basically.
That's not weird at all. That was like I played in Mexico and I found out that the best peanuts down there were Japanese peanuts.
Yeah, like, it's hilarious. It's funny.
That I would say what I missed the most about Venezuela, it was the food. Tequeños, cachapas, empanadas. Yeah. It is so good.
I love that food.
I could not get enough. But again, with the coffee, similar story. I show up, I'm in, I always drink coffee. I blame my kids. The more kids I have, the more coffee I drink.
I got 2 now, so I know. Yeah, I know.
The correlation. So I get there and they have those tiny cups and I'm getting ready for a game and I poured I went and found a bigger cup, like a water cup, and like filled it up and everyone's like, and I'm going,
like, dude,
don't worry, guys, I got this. And you're right. And about the 3rd inning, I couldn't close my eyes and every cell of my body was just rattling.
Yeah.
And anyway, I think I got in the game and pitched well, but I didn't sleep for 2 days.
Again, then you're doing it again. Then.
I go back to the hotel and I'm just laying in my bed, just head on the pillow, staring at the ceiling. Couldn't sleep.
Yeah, it was like it was either there was something in there you didn't know, or it was just like the most powerful cup of coffee you've ever had in your life. Which is probably
real coffee.
Probably the most powerful cup of coffee, but it's funny to think like there could be something laced in there and you're like sitting there just like this,
Yeah, that coffee will definitely put hair on your hair.
100%.
Well, Kyle, dude, I took so much of your time. I apologize, but you know what?
I loved it, man.
This was great catching up.
I cleared the schedule, man. I cleared it. I cleared the schedule.
No, this is great, man. And I love your setup there too.
Thanks. Yeah. Hey, anytime you want me back on, like, don't hesitate, man. I love just talking baseball and everything. So just let me know.
Well, I think that's the one thing that, you don't see a guy for a while and you pick right back up where you left off because when you go through the baseball life together, like you just get stamped, man. You're part of that family. You're part of that
group.
It's like,
think about it, like 3 or 4 years as a teammate in professional baseball is like 20 years in real life because you see it's like you see your best friends, like your best friends right now, you may see like once a week or once every 2 weeks. In professional baseball, you see them every single day. So it's like 20 years time. And
whether you want to or not. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like.
No, that's great, man. I appreciate it. Glad you're doing well, buddy.
Awesome. All right. See you, Tim. Thanks for having me on.
That's all for this week's episode of the world's #1 most unneeded minor league baseball podcast in the world. Buses, benches, and baseball. Huge thanks to Cal Wren for clearing his schedule, and huge thanks to you, my lone listener and solo viewer. Actually, I'm not even sure how many people watch, but that's okay. And hey, besides downloading and liking the show, you can also share it. Why not? It's not like someone's stopping you, unless there is someone stopping you, and then that's a whole other weird thing. Remember, you can watch on YouTube as well as listen on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Amazon Music. Follow on social media at DimTillard Show on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook for a chance to win a prize pack that will be sure to disappoint. Also, comments and reviews are kind of a big deal in the podcast world for some reason, so thank you in advance for doing some of that stuff. And don't forget, you can shop DimTillard merch for some reason at DimTillard.com under the link Buy My Crap. See you next time on Buses, Benches, and Baseball.
Thank you for tuning in to Buses, Benches, and Baseball, presented by DimTillard.